Hi, this is a reflection on lesson 325 in A Course in Miracles that says, all things I think I see reflect ideas. I think that's what it says. All things I think I see reflect ideas. This one is that's a similar pointer to other lessons where it says my inner world is reflected in the outer world. So I create my own reality, and this time it's talking about how we do that with thoughts. So we might look out at the world and see things a certain way and not really question why we see that, or like we put a belief in it. Like we see things and judge it a certain way without really taking a moment to say, well, why? Wait, where's that coming from? Do I really feel that way? Do I really have those beliefs? I feel like they're objectively universal versus totally subjective. I think that's the key there. Is a lot of times when we look out at the world and we say that's wrong, it should be different, and we think everyone else thinks the same way. Or more likely these days it feels like we feel like there are two camps. There's just two sides, and I'm on this side and you're on that side. And still, that's so subjective, but it's treating it as objective truths. There's this way of seeing things, and there's that way, and this is the right way, and that's the wrong way. And it comes up in many ways, but I think of it in terms like the example that came to me when reflecting on this lesson was how, like a simple example would be, maybe I look out at what's happening in the world, and there are so many injustices, right, to look at, and we perceive them as being performed by a certain group of people onto another group of people, like rights being taken away, or war and genocide. We think of those in terms of like victim and perpetrator kind of things. So if I look out at that and I see, let's say it's in terms of like rights being taken away, like maybe about like this, I don't want to get too specific because that might open a different can of worms. So let's just say rights, human rights being taken away, because there are so many examples. And I look out at that and I get so mad, so upset, so sad, whatever emotion comes up for me at the moment, that people's rights, like fundamental rights, are being taken away. And one thing I see popping up on social media about that is what flavor of emotion is showing up. A lot of times I would call it righteous condemnation. Like, I'm going to condemn that act in the name of righteousness. Like, it's wrong. The way I feel about it is right, and those rights shouldn't be taken away. And I tend to agree, like, let everybody be, right? Like, what's the harm in that? But let's set aside my beliefs for now. Like, everything's okay just as it is. Let people get married to whom they want to get married. Let people find the jobs they want to find. Let people get the education they want to get. Like, just let people be. Okay, but we're going to set that aside. So, but this thing of righteous condemnation, like, I'm right and that's wrong. And so therefore I judge it. I have this judgment on it that it's wrong. And then it's like, but is it objectively wrong? Is it wrong for everyone involved? Right? Maybe that's a bad example, because I feel like human rights should be objectively thought, like, should be one universal truth is let people be, let them have their rights. Man, I'm not good at examples on this. But let's just say, whatever, let's erase everything and just say this idea of righteous condemnation, like I'm making a judgment call, I'm right, they're wrong, and I'm going to scream about it because I think everybody feels the same way I do. But I also know that there's a camp of people who don't feel that way, and I'm screaming so that they hear me and they maybe see how right I am, see how wrong they are. They should feel bad with how they feel about it. So that's what I think about righteousness. Like, this righteous condemnation is like maybe one viewpoint out into a situation that reflects the way I think. It's the way I think. I think that this particular situation shouldn't be happening. And so I judge it according to my thoughts, my beliefs. And then these other people over there think, you hear my throat gurgle, these other people don't think the way I think, and therefore they don't see any problem at all, right? So, like, who's right, who's wrong? And it's that righteousness and condemnation, that judging, that I'm like, who am I to say I'm the right one, right? Who am I to say I'm the right one? I may not be, but something in me is judging according to how I think about things. So my inner world's reflected on the outer world. But what if, maybe not in the human rights example, let's set that aside, because it's hard to peel myself away from that to see it a true, like, like not like it should be an objective truth. But let's say some other example, whatever. But so on the flip side, you might say, like, what if I look out at something and I perceive, like, I think about it as like not righteous indignation or condemnation, but I look at like something somebody's doing and I don't think, oh man, they're a mean, hateful person. I might think, man, they are hurting. They are wounded. Because what else would explain their behavior other than if I don't perceive them acting, and again, it's still a personal perception. If I don't perceive them as acting out of love, then they're doing something I feel is wrong, but the way I think about it is maybe not righteous hatred, condemnation. Maybe the way I think about it is, man, they seem really wounded. They seem like they're hurting and they're reacting to that hurt because the way they see things, they see that they feel that they're hurting, so then they might have to perpetuate that hurt on the outside. So if maybe I see things in that light, I don't feel that righteous hatred toward them. I might feel compassion. I might feel sometimes a little empathy. I might feel like I want to send them some good thoughts, healing thoughts, and which, it's hard. It was hard for me to make that shift. And I shouldn't say hard. It just took a long time to start to see things a little differently. And maybe part of it wasn't altruistic. Maybe part of it was selfish, saying, I don't like the way hatred feels in my body. I don't like the way judgment feels in my body. So I don't want to do that anymore. And one way I found to make that shift was to really come to the understanding that we're all wounded in some way. We really are. I don't think you get out of being a human. You don't get out of this alive. Unscathed, right? There's always, everybody's got something. Yeah, everybody's got something. And they're, even down to the billionaires, you're like, well, they've got everything. They're not wounded. I don't think like that. But it's like, well, what turned them into who they are, where they had to accumulate so much? What were they missing, maybe? You could speculate all you want. We don't know each other. We're never going to know each other to our depths. Only we can do that as a solo journey. But you might speculate, well, you may feel like making excuses for them, but this is just an example. It's like, well, something made them into this energy of consumption, gathering, like taking, where it's like, what is that? Where it's like, I need more. That feels like a wound, right? And they might turn around and donate a lot of it. That's pretty cool to help balance that consumption energy. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, but it's like to make that shift from like black and white thinking into, and I'm still on that journey of like what would love do here? What would love say here? The love versus hatred. Hatred might say division, separation, right and wrong, black and white. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm going to scream it. I'm going to speak my views that say, because I'm saying this is wrong, you all should feel that way too. That feels more like on the hatred or fear. Really, it's fear end of the spectrum, where it's like, what would love say here? Love might say, man, I'm so sorry you're so wounded, that resulted in these behaviors that aren't a projection of love, that aren't an example of love, that aren't these behaviors aren't perpetuating love. So again, it makes me think in terms of love and fear, and how this lesson talks about everything's a reflection of my thoughts. Well, what are my thoughts reflecting? Or what are my behaviors? What thoughts are my behaviors reflecting? If my behavior is to scream into the Facebook void, I'm so mad. And I always use that as an example because it's social media. It's an easy example of like, what am I putting out there that is a reflection of the way I'm thinking about things? And if I'm thinking about things as like hatred, fear, then that's what comes out, right? But if I think in terms, if the thoughts come of like, I look out there at some situation, I think, oh, man, my heart goes out to them because there's a wound that's playing out in their behaviors. Like, what need, like back to that, what need didn't they get met at some point in their life that now it's turned into some dysfunction, or just love isn't there in the way they're behaving? And then I think, man, my heart goes out to them. I can inject love into that situation by seeing, like, if I think in terms of love, then my actions are going to follow. I might reach out to them and say, I'm sorry you're hurting. I mean, I'm a little shy, so I may not right away, depending on how well I know the person. But, you know, it might just be like a different way of, it might, even if you don't know, maybe it is just sending love energetically. Because I'm thinking in terms of love. I'm thinking, man, that's a wound, or they're hurting. Pause for a moment. I just talked to these kids on the bike. So that's what this lesson made me think of, is really thinking back to how questioning my thoughts. I might be saying it backwards, but like when an emotion comes up in me, it usually starts with either a thought or some sensation in the body. Something's producing an emotion, like I feel, and then we feel like a lot of times we have to act on that emotion. We have to scream into the Facebook void. But if we backtrack it, of like, well, wait, where's this emotion coming from? Did I feel a sensation that quickly erupted into an emotion? I maybe want to backtrack and look what that feeling in my body is that I can bring some softness to, perhaps, or what thought just happened that resulted in this emotion. Let's question that thought. Is that thought coming from a place of fear? Is it coming from a place of love? And to me, I had to take it back to like what's worked for me, and also it feels pretty simple, right? It feels pretty easy to do if we create the space and pause. If we were even so inclined to do a practice like this, like when we feel an emotion that feels like we have to act on it, before acting, have that little impulse control. Oh man, that's hard. And say, what just happened that resulted in an emotion? Because they don't just come out of nowhere. There's always a precursor. There's something that happened, a thought or a sensation. Or another emotion. You might have to backtrack and piece together like several emotions in a row to feel like, what happened here? Because sometimes, like, I've had so many examples in my life where if I didn't do that, like before I started that as a practice, it was just in reaction mode all the time, not even questioning why I had these repeat occurrences in the way I treated myself and the way I treated others. And the way I screamed into the social media void as, oh, another gurgle, as if everyone had the same beliefs. And beliefs, again, are just thoughts that we put a lot of oomph behind. They're just thoughts, and thoughts are nothing. Thoughts are just like, they're not made of anything. And to me, also, this makes me think about how jumbled up, how like coupled thoughts, sensations, and emotions really are. And then it's like pulling on a tangled up necklace. How do I unwind this? And a lot of times I'm like, do I really need that necklace? No, I'm just gonna throw all those necklaces away because I don't have the oomph to untangle them. I don't have the energy. So it does, I get it takes energy to do this inquiry as a practice over and over again. But I feel like baby steps, just baby steps. And I just really, I really have a lot of grace, patience, empathy, compassion, all those things for people who may not even yet realize how bundled up thoughts, emotions, and sensations really are, and how it's possible to tease them apart and see them for what they are versus just this repetitive, nagging, gnawing contraction that you're dealing with. But it can all be loosened. And it's probably no wonder I've always said, man, I really appreciate people who have the patience for untangling a ball of necklaces. Like, I've said that literally so many times because there's something intuitively in me knew, like, that's such a skill to have the patience and the inclination and the curiosity to untangle things and restore things to their purity, to really separate things, to see them clearly, to make them useful again. Bye.